Hello, welcome back to another episode of The Varieties of My Anxieties. I'm your host, Cody Sexton, aka the Redheaded Asshole.
I'm Sebastian Weiss, written shit that I'm surprised anybody publishes and reads. And today we have Paula. Oh, my brain's all fucked up. How do I say your last name? Deckard?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I'm coming down. Last night I had a fucking migraine, so I'm a little bit scrambled. So in case you're wondering why I'm like half a retard, that's kind of why. So anyway, let's promote some of your stuff. Your first book, correct me if I'm wrong, is it Heart Like a Hole, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Full disclosure, haven't read it yet. Want to promote that a bit? Because I hear it's a banger.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I don't know. It's been so long. Because I published it in 2018. And I really messed up the whole marketing part of it. And it wasn't until I think last year that I was trying to promote it a bit more via social media. I think I did get a little bit of exposure thanks to the Bastards and Tommy Wade and some other people. But I don't know. I sort of put that behind me now. It's like, I don't know, I kind of moved on from it.
I kind of get that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's always, I don't know about YouTube, but it's weird, but also nice when somebody hits you up and they're like, oh, this piece you wrote, and you like forgot about it. Because I don't know, but like after I write something and it's all done and it's out there, I like forget about it. So if somebody messages me or something, like I'm very glad with the reception that some of the stuff gets, but like I forget about it. And then they're like, oh, and then I have to remember, I'm like, what are they talking about? You know, they hit me up and they're like, oh, this kid had this interesting fetish, and here, I want to tell you about this. I'm like, what? Why are you, what? Oh, yeah, like I wrote that a while ago. So I bet that's the same for you, because correct me if I'm wrong, but Heart Like a Hole is like it's a medical, it's like it's like okay, I'll just let you obviously know it better than I do, so tell the audience about it, if you don't mind.
Well, so it's about a female heart surgeon in New York, and yeah, there's a lot of medical stuff in it too. And I do admit that it was a very ambitious piece, because the idea came up in 2006. I was still in college, studying creative writing and English literature, and I wrote this short story about a female doctor, a physician who has post-traumatic stress and OCD, and I got an A for that short story. And my professor at the time was like really impressed with it, and he said that I should develop it into something bigger, and then so I did. I turned it into a novel, and that short story became a chapter. I think it's like chapter 13 or something. But yeah, it was a 10-year process pretty much, because I did take a long break from it in between. Like after college, I put it aside and wasn't really as motivated to work on it. But while I was studying, I actually did a lot of research. I had like over 20 pages of research paper that I gathered that I wanted to incorporate into the novel. And it worked pretty well, I guess. But the initial inspiration for that, I would say, would have been Bret Easton Ellis's American Psycho. And I think a lot of readers of my book, they could see the connection and the influence, except there's no murder or anything like that. It's not about a serial killer. It's more about there's some absurdism in it as well, like because the philosophy I follow would be more that of Albert Camus, maybe a little bit of Sartre, but yeah, you see a lot of that kind of influence in the book as well.
Yeah.
I suck at talking about my book. I get very anxious when people ask me about it, and I don't even know where to start.
American Psycho, I mean, that's good. I mean, a good tagline could be something like, I mean, a good tag, I mean, oh God, people are going to get pissed at me for saying this, but like, American Psycho should have been a novella, right?
It was kind of overwritten. I mean, I haven't reread it.
Kind of.
Well, I enjoyed
the guy
it.
has to return videotapes like 20,000 fucking times, right? He goes out to eat, and there's like whole chapters where he's going out to eat. It's like, get to the fucking murder, cocksucker. Like.
No, I liked it. Even when he talked about Whitney Houston, Phil Collins, I like that.
Oh, I hated it. I loved it when he actually got to like, when people were like when I read it, like I read when people are like, his publisher was like, oh, because he had to go to somebody else, right? And it was like, oh, we can't, it's too disturbing and whatever. And I'm like, it's only disturbing if you're trying to fucking stay awake. Like, get to the fucking murder. Like, I don't know. I just thought it was, overwritten. So you could just say it's like American Psycho, except you've taken out all of the name brand dropping that that's not a Gen Xer in sexual psychosis would understand. Like you can definitely tell that Bret Easton Ellis is a Gen Xer because of how much he name drops fucking brands. And you can definitely tell, like, I found out afterwards he actually went to a private school, and it's like, I get it. All that preppy boy, whatever. And that's not to shit on a guy, but because when it does get down to the scenes that are like, right, where he sticks like a floor, isn't he like a floor lamp up some woman's pussy or whatever, and like that fucked me up. But I'm like, that's what it should have been. It should have been all that, right? So what are some of the fucked up things that your heart surgeon does?
Well, for starters, she talks, well, she tries to connect to people via operations. Like she would talk to, during the operation, she would talk to the subject that's on her table, like when they're on anesthetic and she's operating on them. And and what else?
So like they're unconscious and she's having this kind of like dialogue with them, kind of like talking to them, but it's kind of like she's talking to herself in a way.
Yeah, all through her head, and that's how she, that's how she connects with them in a way, because on the outside she's very detached, and I don't really want to say sociopathic, but maybe a little bit of that, because that's where I would say that she has some kind of Patrick Bateman influence.
Okay.
And well, when we talk about the motivations of the book, it's her trying to feel. She also can't feel orgasms. So what she does is
really?
Yeah. So what she does is she I wouldn't say she's an nymphomaniac, but what she does is she gets close to her patients because she has the way of examining the bloods it's because she doesn't just sleep around. She needs to know that person's blood type. She needs to know that they're clean and.
No, sorry, I'm still listening. I'm in a storm, so I'm just monitoring it. But keep going. I'm not zoning out. I'm listening. This is very interesting. So like, does she have like fetishes? Like, does she have to like, does she get off on like blood and stuff?
I would say so. Yeah, that's in her eyes, blood symbolizes life, and it gives her life meaning because well, throughout the novel, you get like a glimpse of her past. So she has had a very traumatic past, but yeah, I don't want to give it away right now, but it's something that keeps coming up, and that's also what's made her who she is. And
is it also the sense that she's got like almost quite literally someone's life in her hands, and it's kind of like a power trip too? Does she have kind of like a god complex?
Not much of a god complex, I would say, but it does give her. Yeah, I guess there's a little bit of power. Because when she gets a patient, she considers that patient hers. So like nobody lays hand on that patient because that patient is mine and mine alone. And she does prefer male patients just because she feels more drawn to men, but not as much to women.
Okay. Does she ever? So when you say she can't achieve orgasm, do you mean like at all, or does it have to be a very specific? Like, can she achieve it? Like.
Oh, so
will she be in heart surgery and all of a sudden like it'll happen and then she'll achieve orgasm when she's doing surgery?
Well, when you see that she does achieve it, but she just kind of blacks out and she doesn't feel it. And that's something to do with her past, and you will read about her having felt her last orgasm when she was a child.
Yeah.
And then she's just trying to grasp that kind of moment that she could feel it as it's happening. But every time when she finds the perfect match and sleeps with them, she kind of blacks out, and it feels like nothing happened. And yeah, and also the reason she gets into heart surgery is to mend a broken heart.
So there's different layers of meaning. Okay, so there's multiple layers of meaning. Yeah, I'm sold on it. Yeah, I mean, it's on my list. I mean, I feel like an asshole. Like I haven't read it. I feel like an asshole. Like, and, we invited you on, and then, but no, it's been on my list for a while because I read. I mean, I got full disclosure. What kind of sold me on it too was I read some of the reviews, and like some of the negative ones were like, "Oh, this was disturbing," and I'm like, "Yeah." See, a lot of people think that like I know you and I have talked, and you said that you consider yourself a more literary writer than a transgressive fiction writer. And I think that that's how I would consider myself too. Like I never set out to do it. It's just I just sort of fall into that camp. But like, I think what a lot of people don't understand is something being disgusting, offensive, or whatever. That's not a flaw in the work. That's a feature, right? It's just like now, like a lot of people want like real watered down comedy because they're like, oh, look at this is so offensive in it, whatever. And it's like, no, motherfucker, that's a feature, right? Like the writer has achieved his or her job. Like the job is to make you feel something. I mean, you would agree with that, right? I mean, I think everybody would agree that like the impetus, not impetus, but thrust of good fiction is that it makes you feel something. And it doesn't matter what it is. It can make you feel revulsion. It can make you feel sad. Whatever makes you feel. If it strikes, if the hot iron strikes that, the writer has achieved the goal. So yeah, that's what sold me on it, was these people complaining about like, oh, I had to put the book down. It's like, you fucking weak bitches. Like, fucking suck it up and finish it, you know?
Yeah, and that's sorry.
No, go ahead, Nazim.
No, it's what I was gonna say is when I when I self-published it, I was not prepared for marketing, you know. So I wasn't even really thinking about my audience. I was like, oh, that's probably I'm probably gonna just sell it to my friends and family, because I didn't even do pre-sale or shit like that, because I just didn't know any of this. So when I self-published it, I just posted it on Facebook or something on social media, and obviously barely anyone bought it, or they bought it and just to support me, but they haven't read it, or they read it halfway through and never told me what they thought of it. And then I realized that, wait, I think some of the subject matters are maybe too sensitive to some people. And I wasn't thinking about it. I just thought it would be suitable for, all types of book readers, like horror readers, romance readers, and it was wrong of me to think like that. And that's why, I messed up on the marketing part, and then I just forgot about it for like almost 3 years. And then when was it, last year, I decided to maybe give it another try and connect with like-minded writers and readers that might like it. And I remember I was on, when was it, last year, I was on Instagram. I was trying to connect with horror writers, and some of them were nice and stuff, but I was like, no, I don't think they're the right people. And then I started monitoring the transgressive fiction hashtag, and it was really complicated. I just didn't really see anything interesting, and I was really close to giving up and just like, oh, whatever, just get over it. And that was, I think, when I bumped into Gareth, because I remember seeing a post of his book, and that kept popping up under transgressive fiction, and I remember I bought the ebook of Heather, and I was reading it, and I thought, oh, that's cool, but I didn't know who it was until I finished that book, and I was like, I want to learn more about the author. And then the next day, he started following me, and I didn't even know who he was, and I was like, oh my god, that's the guy whose book I just read. And then we started talking a bit, and then he invited me on to the Bastard show, and then Tommy Wade got in touch with me, invited me to his podcast. So I got on there first, I think, and thanks to that, he gave me some exposure, and then I was on the Bastards, then I got even more exposure, so I was like really grateful for that. And I think that's how I found you guys, and I realized, oh, there are actually readers that are interested in that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And Lauren Sapala too, like,
Yeah, I heard a lot about her.
oh, she's a magnificent, I mean, she's just a magnificent human being. I mean, if you ever get a chance, I mean, I don't want to, people to bombard the woman with stuff, but one of the first interactions I had when I finally signed up for Twitter was I hit her up, and she was just unbelievably gracious and nice about like everything. Like, she's just, yeah, I mean, I can't say enough positive about Lauren. So yeah, check her. That's that. I use some of her articles because when people would ask me what transgressive fiction is, I never could really come up. Like the best thing I can come up with is it's literary plus blending elements of other genres, right? So it doesn't really, it's like the bastard child of literary and maybe horror, maybe crime, but it doesn't really fit anywhere, right? But it's definitely got a literary bent to it, right? Because it examines the human condition in one way or another, but from an angle of, I mean, and I don't really even like the definition of like, oh, it's where people break, you know, oh, they push back against social norms and whatever. And it's like, yeah, but horror and crime fiction does that too. So the only thing I could think of is that it examines the human condition from the perspective of somebody who is maybe like an outcast or something, or otherwise. But yeah, there's not really a good definition.
I'm not convinced it's a real genre, period.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's really not.
It only makes sense within the context of marketing, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. 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 So yeah, people go out and get Heart Like a Hole. I'm sold on. I mean, I was sold on it before, but the more you were talking, and especially if it's got this like interesting sexual element to it.
Yeah, we're sexual deviants on this show, so.
Yeah, we don't make any. Cody, can we spill the beans on your current project, or do you want to keep that under wraps?
No, it's fine. Yeah, we'll talk about it.
Okay, I gotta say, because I'm fucking in love with this project, and you can steal the fucking poems that I wrote up or whatever. Okay, so check this out. Cody's working on a poetry book. And you have a great title, Too Numb to Come.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's all about different fucked up pornos he wants to see, and it's awesome, right? I'm working on the intro for it, and like, I hope you don't mind if I ask, how old are you, Paula? You're in your 30s, right?
I'm 37.
Okay, so you're my age. Yeah, you're Cody. How old are you? You're my age too, 37, 36?
Yeah. Well, I'll be 37 soon. Yeah.
Okay.
36.
So, like, with people like us, there's like this universal experience of growing up before the internet. So, I'm sure, Paula, you've had this experience. You've found like a box of porn, right?
I
No.
don't think so.
Oh, you really never? I mean, maybe it's a guy thing, but almost everybody has a story like that before the internet, right? I mean, now like the Zoomers can't really like relate to it, but like back when it was, you know, you'd find it you'd raid your dad's closet, or maybe you'd be walking on the beach, you'd find a box of porn that some savage decided to fucking bury or whatever. It's almost like a universal experience among people our age and maybe even the Gen Xers, but I kind of like relive that because like the first time you're exposed to that, it might be different for women though. So maybe this is like weird, but it's just like the first. It's like a religion. Cody, you would agree? It's like a religious experience, right?
Yes,
Like when you're like,
yeah, when you find that, it's like coming across like the Ark of the Covenant.
yeah,
That's what it feels like.
yeah. Yeah, it's like for me it was, I've told this story before, but I just love it so much. Like I raided my uncle's porn closet, and before then I mean, I was 12, I hadn't seen shit, right? I mean, the most I'd seen was like you'd watch fucking Baywatch, and it was like you didn't watch it for the story, and you were just like, fuck off, David Hasselhoff. And then, or you'd like stay up late and watch those shitty Girls Gone Wild.
Or you get off on the paintings, you know, Rubens paintings, you know, that sort of thing.
Yeah. But I suppose if Paula doesn't have this, we can't really commiserate on like when you first found something that was like, wow. It's like,
I think for me, it was more TV-based stuff. Because growing up in Germany in the early 90s, after 10 p.m., there would be like porn movies and stuff. And German stuff is very clumsy, but it's hilarious. And I
yeah, go
remember
on.
watching that when I was like 11 or 12, and I was like, this is weird.
Okay, I've seen. Okay, so tell me some of the weird stuff. Tell me some of
Yeah,
the
so is it, is it softcore, hardcore?
No, it's neither. I don't know. I don't know. They were just. I remember this one show based on, the story of Heidi, the girl in Switzerland living with her grandpa. You know that in the Alps. And there would be German porn movies about that, about Heidi going into the city and then she just gets fucked all over the place. It's just
It sounds
I
awesome.
don't know. Yeah, just that kind of stuff. It's
Is it still on in Germany? Maybe I should take a trip.
Sorry?
Is it still on in Germany? Maybe I should.
Oh, I don't know. German TV.
I should
German
immigrate.
TV probably has changed.
You live in Canada now, right?
Yeah. I have been since 2013. Before that, I was living in the UK for 8 years. I left Germany pretty much when I was 18.
Okay.
And I was going back and forth, but I was primarily living in the UK because I did my bachelor's degree and my master's degree there, and then I ended up working there until I decided to go to Canada. I got not citizenship. I got permanent residency in 2016. So yeah, I guess I'm here, but originally I wasn't sure where I would be.
So, I mean, safe to assume you're fluent in German, right? I mean, that's kind of a dumb question, but just kind of, you're right. You're fluent in German, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I am. But I think I would sound clumsy. I've been outside of the country for so long. I'm actually going back to visit next month. And I remember when I've been away for too long, my German friends would be like, "You sound like you're thinking in English." So, I mean, yeah, I'm still fluent in German, but people can hear that I'm no longer really, I don't know, not really identify myself. I never really have been, to be honest. My nationality is German, but I don't know. There was a reason why I left at the age of 18. I wasn't happy there. Education was super difficult, and I didn't have friends when I was a kid. Not until I was 15.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, it was really difficult connecting with people. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I don't want to speak for Cody, but I don't know, Cody. I've never really felt this like American spirit that they feel like it's like I live here, but it's just a fucking piece of land for me, right? It's just a shitty piece of stolen land that we've,
Yeah, I have no affinity toward this country or its people.
Yeah, me neither. So I can appreciate that. Kind of felt that alienation, especially like if you're of any degree of like. I mean, again, in your experience with the German people, I don't know. Like over here, we've almost cornered the market on like dumb motherfuckers and like anti-intellectualism. So how is it in Germany? Are like the Germans do they value like intellectualism and that kind of stuff, or are they more like Americans where it's like where ignorance is celebrated, like the dumber you are, like the cooler you are?
No, I mean, for sure, Germans, they do value intellectualism, and they're very pragmatic. But the issue I grew up with was probably racial issues, because I was born in the northern part of Germany, which was not that multicultural, I should say. You have lots of Polish, Russian immigrants or Turkish immigrants, but they were primarily white, even though a lot of them didn't even, they just moved there when they were like 10 or something. But I was born in Germany. So I grew up with, well, Chinese and German. And my German was still better than any of the other immigrants. But it still felt like I was the outcast, because I remember throughout primary school, elementary school, I think I was the only Chinese girl, like, and at the entire school. And I always felt really alienated, I think, because I thought why is my skin color not white? Why am I, so weird? And I was super shy. I didn't talk until 10th grade, I think. I don't even know how I made it to 10th grade, but yeah. And yeah, even thinking about it, I was just like, oh, that was the worst and longest time of my life. Like, I hated school, high school, especially recess. You get like 20-minute break to go outside, get some fresh air. That was the worst part of school, because those 20 minutes used to feel like a whole hour for me, because I would just stand outside in the corner, just like not doing anything. And I was even too anxious to eat in front of the people, so I would just hide in the girls' toilet, and just maybe eat my cookies or my sandwich or something, because I didn't want these people to see me. But then again, I don't even think they saw me anyway. So yeah, that's the memory I have of Germany, like throughout my childhood. And I think it wasn't until I was 15 that I made my first friends, because I gathered some more confidence, and I got into the punk movement, and I was like, oh, that was when I started making friends, and people started to think, oh, this girl's pretty cool. But yeah, that was kind of short-lived. And then I finished high school and didn't know what to do with myself, except for taking a gap year, and that's when I left for the UK, because I've always loved the English language.
Do you have any siblings?
Siblings?
Yeah, you have any?
Yeah, I have a younger sister.
Was her experience kind of the same, or?
She started off similarly as me, except that I think she made friends at a younger age, because I didn't until like my teenage years. But she was shy at the start, but she got used to it sooner than I did. I think by the time she was at elementary school, it was fine for her. I mean, there's 4 years difference between us. So by that time, I think her school was slightly more multicultural than when I was growing up.
Okay. So there was never any like teachers or like a mentor that's sort of like, or that did take you under the wing to kind of help you out or anything?
Actually, they did, but in a way that I didn't enjoy it. So what happened was they would talk to other kids' parents, like, oh, Paula is a nice girl, she's quiet, but we need her to, engage a bit more. So they would get those parents to tell their kids to invite me over to the house to, draw together, paint together, and play. But I would just, sometimes a schoolmate would come to my place, or I would go to their place, but I barely spoke, so it was like weird. And I knew that those kids didn't necessarily like that, or they didn't like me, and I could feel that. It's like it felt really forced. But yeah, it's better when when I think some of them genuinely wanted to connect with me, but I was just so, I don't know, so paralyzed. I couldn't talk, and then they eventually gave up on me, and I don't blame them for it.
So I'm curious. I mean, I don't want to I mean, you can feel free to tell me to back off, but I'm just curious, like how do I word this in a way that I don't come across sounding like a dick?
Just say it.
Yeah, like what do you think made you that way? Because when you were talking, I got kind of I mean, it reminded me, have you read No Longer Human?
I actually just read it the other week.
Isn't that a fucking great book?
I preferred the comic.
They have a
So
comic? They have a comic?
yeah, Junji Ito turned it into a comic.
Oh.
And the reason I like the comic better is, well, the book is good, but I couldn't really connect as much with that person. I had really high expectations. I'm actually still working on a review on that book. I had really high expectations because everyone is like, talking about it. But my problem with that book was that it lacked context. I mean, it's sort of written in a journal type of way, but I was missing context. Like, for example, that one scene, that couple suicide, it's like, oh, she died. And it was like, how? It's like, what exactly happened? And then it wasn't until I read the comic that you get more context, even though Junji Ito probably, interpreted the story his way. But I still preferred it because, there's so much more background story and so much more depth. And yeah, the novel, it was okay, but it just lacked that kind of depth for me to, really connect with that, with a character.
See, for me, I appreciated the glossing over because when there was the one suicide attempt, it was pretty quick. It was glossed over pretty quickly. And I can see why that would turn a lot of people off if they wanted depth. But at the same time, like how people interpret like a horrific event, they oftentimes just weave it into natural conversation. And so I could appreciate that. So for example, I won't say who this is for confidentiality, but I had somebody open up to me, a couple people open up to me with roughly this story where we were just talking and I was talking to her and she said, I forget what it was. It came out of the blue, but like, it was just, she just threw this in there about how her mother pimped her out for drugs. And then she went on to something else. I'm like, hang on, wait. Now, hang on a sec. What I want to know, people do that. I mean, it's become so like normalized in a way, like the way that people, like how horrific people are treated, that they just, I don't know. It just seems like, oh yeah, that's probably how I would do it too. Like I've had 3 suicide attempts under my belt, and when people ask me about it, it's just, I don't know. I don't drone on and on. It's just, yeah, I mean, I did it. I mean, and then I just move on to something else. So I don't know. For me, I appreciate, I mean, I can see your point and I appreciate that. It would be nice to see that depth, but I can appreciate the glossing over. I don't know. I'm rambling. Cody, you want to add something? So I don't. just drone on like a dork.
Well, I haven't actually read it, so I can't really comment too much on that book. But I didn't know it was I did not know it was a graphic novel, so I might actually check that out instead. Actually,
I would read the novel first and then the comic, just because. Yeah, and I get what you said about it, Sebastian. It's because it's pretty much a journal style story, and he didn't feel like it was important to go into depth. But so that therefore you can't really call it a piece of fiction. I mean, it is semi-autobiographical, I suppose, but
Yeah.
and it was not. It took me some time to like gather that and then understand why it was written in that sort of fashion. It's like, but there was even things I completely missed, like how he was abused by the servants. I don't remember that in the book, and it's just like maybe
Yeah.
it was just written in one sentence, and I completely missed it. So in a way, I want to read the novel again now, having read the graphic novel, because I felt like, oh wait a sec, I think he mentioned that, but he didn't go into detail, and then it's.
What was weird for me was it's three. So it took me, I mean, maybe I was slow on the uptake, but I figured it was just weird how it was structured. And I don't know if like this is just how, because it's a Japanese classic, right? It was written in like what, 1940 or something like that.
That.
And maybe the way that they did journaling, but I just thought like, I mean, the novel, I mean, it's a little under 200 pages, and some of the journals, like that you can roughly call chapters, are like 80 some pages. And I was thinking, is that how people journal? They sit down and 80 pages? Sometimes you get a break here and there, but that struck me as weird. I don't know if that struck you as weird, but I'm like, man, this is one long ass journal entry. And then I'm like, oh no, this is a whole journal. So I don't know if that's how people journal over there or like do diaries where they just like, they don't segregate days. They just pick up where they left off. I guess I just don't know. I'm just ignorant of that. But
Yeah,
like, when I would pick it up, I was just like, I'm like, man, this is fucking long. I don't know if that struck you that way, but that struck me that way. It took me a while to be like, oh, these are three separate journals, not entries. Because for a minute, I was like, God damn, this guy is like must be spending like 2 days writing this thing out. But yeah, I didn't know it was a graphic novel either. And now that I mention it, I didn't know he was abused by servants either.
See, like those little details, and yeah, Junji Ito picked on it, and it's like he turned it into something. He turned it into like a chapter of the narrator's life, going into detail, and yeah, I really like that in terms of enhancing a story, just to help you understand the narrator a bit better and put yourself in his shoes. Because during the novel, I had a hard time, let's say.
And I never picked up on why it was exactly that. And maybe this was the point, is that you weren't supposed to know, but I never picked up on why he felt so alienated, you know? Did I miss why he felt so alienated?
Yeah, I just remember him going on and on about it, like, oh, I can't
Yeah.
connect, and even the title, it actually got me. That's why I really wanted to read it. But then what struck me was the way he was with women. He was literally just living off of women, just
Yeah.
staying in
Yeah.
their apartments without being grateful for it. It's like that really pissed me off about it, and that's really made me think like, yeah, you're really not human at all. Can't even take care of yourself and all that stuff.
But then he marketed it, but then the character, like he said, like he was like he set it up about how he was like abused by women. And when I read it, I'm like, no, you're not. Like it's the other way around, dude. Like you're fucking like you're walking around drinking like nonstop. But it's like I'm gonna tell you about how women humiliated me, and I'm like, okay. And then I'm like, they didn't fucking do that, dude. Like it's like you said, he was a fucking leech. He would leech off these fucking poor women. Yeah. But the ending I thought was good. It was not really like a twist, but I liked the ending, and I liked the structure of how they structured the ending. But yeah, but anyway, this is far removed from what I was about to say, which was, what do you think caused you to feel so alienated? I mean, you said, you did mention that you didn't like, look like a lot of the other kids there, and that might have been a big part of it. But was there something else, or was it just, did you get this kind of feeling that you just didn't belong? Like you got this sense, this deep feeling like I don't belong here, and so that's kind of why you retreated into yourself?
Yeah, probably, or partly. Because I was like, when did it start? It started at kindergarten, actually. I was already, among all these kids, and I just didn't know how to connect. They were playing games, and I kind of wanted to as well, but something just stopped me. Because up to this day, I'm not too sure what it is. And then obviously the kids didn't make it any easier for me, because in Germany, there are racist nursery rhymes, songs, and they would do the slanted eye thing just to make fun. But a lot of them don't mean it in
Racism
a.
from Germany? I would never have guessed that there would be
Yeah.
racism from
Yeah, those are the
Germany.
last ones I was expecting.
Those are the last ones.
Yeah, the
Let the
thing is
viewers
that
fill in the blanks. Go on,
they
sorry.
no, it's just that I always try to like convince myself they didn't mean it in a nasty way, because most of the time they didn't. They were just ignorant, and they didn't know any better.
Yeah.
And I also like trying to analyze, where I was born, where I grew up, because Northern Germany, all you get are, tall blondes, people of Scandinavian descent or whatever. They're all like 6 foot or taller, and I'm just like 5'3". and and another thing is that, I guess what bothered me was, and made me feel like I was, ugly or not welcome or something, is because I never had admirers. I never had a German boyfriend. And I always felt like, well, they always talk about, uh, the tall blondes and being attracted to blonde people. And I was like, well, that's not for me. And it wasn't until I, moved to the UK that I started getting admirers. And that's when I, started, opening up, making friends, and actually started dating and all that stuff. It's probably because UK, had colonies, so they were exposed to some other different cultures. Well, this is how I interpret it, but and maybe that's why growing up in Germany was more difficult for me. I don't know.
Yeah, Cody, you can probably back me up on this, but there's a decent, at least in the States, like a lot of like guys who have like Asian fetishes, right? So I would have thought I would have thought, I mean, that you'd have gotten hit on quite a bit, for a variety of reasons, but they must not have. I mean, right, Cody, in the States, there's guys, a lot of guys gravitate towards Asian women. They have this like fetish about them.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
for
think
all the wrong.
Sorry, no, I think it would probably depend on the era or the time you were born or grew up, because I guess in the States there would still be, you know, racism. They would still think, oh, you're Korean or you are Vietnamese or something like that, you know. So there's that history, and I'm pretty sure I know people, some American Asians, that were bullied because of that. Especially people not knowing your exact origin, I guess. But to be honest, other than Germany, I experienced racism in Asia. I traveled Southeast Asia. I went to Vietnam, Thailand, and mainly Vietnam and Thailand. And oh my God, I didn't realize, I didn't even know about the South Sea conflict between China and Southeast Asia and all that shit. But when I visited Vietnam, they were really hostile towards me as soon as they found out that I was not one of them. So they immediately classified me as a Chinese. And they were, oh God, they were bad. And even in Thailand, people were a bit more open-minded and more friendly. But I was with my Australian ex-boyfriend at the time. So whenever we entered a hotel, or when we booked a hotel, people would think that it could be, you know, a Thai prostitute that he's bringing home. And I'm like, you know, that kind of shit. I hated that.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, I mean, what I was exposed to when there's two black women that I dated, and it was fascinating to me in the sense of like in the African American community, and this was, I mean, obviously I wouldn't know about it unless I was told it, right? But it was just comments that were made of like, and I don't want to generalize, I don't want to make too much of a generalization that it's how widespread it is because I'm just some jerk off white dude. I mean, but from what I saw was like my girlfriend at the time would be like, oh, that person's too, you know, too dark, or that person's, so if you were too dark or too light, then you'd get made fun of. You had to be like the right color of brown. It's like, okay. And also I've know like Africans, there's an interesting conflict between Africans and African Americans, which to me is weird. I mean, it's just weird. And I don't really know why that is, and it's never been explained to me. But yeah, I mean, I've heard of similar things with I've heard of, and you can probably you've already kind of confirmed it. Like I've heard, for instance, that like Chinese and Japanese people, that there tends to be some conflict there, right? Is that correct? Like they kind of, again, I don't want to generalize like everybody, but just a general sentiment is that there's a kind of animosity between Japanese and Chinese. Is that correct?
Well, if you relate it to history when they attacked China,
Yeah.
and you will still find older generations that don't like the Japanese people, but nowadays it's, I don't know, it's
Yeah.
But I know that a lot of Asian people hate it. Well, if they're not Chinese, but they are, you know, compared like I know Koreans, for example, like I'm Korean, I'm not Chinese, and stuff like that. But then again, well, Chinese is my background. It's I always say it's my ethnicity, but I don't have anything to do with it, except for I understand my parents or my grandparents' mentality or relatives, but it's not something I really associate myself with.
Yeah, it's like it's your it's your history, but you weren't entrenched in the culture. It wasn't like you didn't marinate in the culture because you obviously grew up in Germany, right? So that would make sense. Yeah, I knew. Yeah, there was a guy that I was in grad school with, and he was also Chinese, but he spent the majority of his time in, was it Vancouver? Yeah. No. What's the big city right above California? My geography's fucked up.
Yeah, you're right. That's
Vancouver.
Vancouver.
Yeah. Yeah, he spent the majority of his time there. And so I would ask him questions because I was curious about him. He goes, I don't know. I'm not, like, I came here when I was young. I don't really have that much of a connection. But he did say that his parents were like traditional, like Chinese. And so he had a bit of a hard time connecting with them just because they had certain social norms and rules that I think that they wanted him to conform to that he didn't really understand. And maybe that was the same with you. I don't know. I'll ask. Is that kind of the same with you?
No, my parents have always been very open, I guess. And when I was growing up in Germany, they were actually really good at conforming, I guess. Even my dad kind of converted to Christianity, and I don't think that either of my parents really care about. They don't really care about religion anyway. My mom gravitates a bit towards Buddhism, but in the end, it's just like whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're gonna gravitate toward any spiritual tradition, fuck all the Western shit. That's all just garbage. Yeah, go towards. Yeah, like I have like personally, I have a deep affinity for like Buddhism and Taoism, because they're not really religions, right? I mean, they're not really religions, not in any kind of meaningful sense. But then you come and you hear Christians, and it's like this nonsense. So, let me ask you a question, because we also like to dunk on religion here. When you were first exposed to Christianity, were you like, this is fucking retarded?
Well, as a kid, I didn't know any better. I was just because even my high school was Christian. So what happens in northern Germany, at least, when you first go to school? What's it called? The way they celebrate it, you actually all gather at the church to get what's it called?
Communion.
Yeah, I think that's the word. So before you actually go into class, and also you have to take religion lessons up until, I think I had religion lessons till 7th grade or something, and you couldn't vote it off. It's like you have to do it. And then I think by year 10 you could choose between philosophy or religion. And obviously I chose philosophy. But even when you choose philosophy, they talk about Martin Luther. It's like all the Lutheran Protestant kind of stuff, ethics, and it's still like kind of like religion. It wasn't until they started talking about Immanuel Kant that I was like, oh, this is getting interesting now.
Oh God, he was one of the he's the guy that got you interested in philosophy, Kant.
No, actually not. It was French philosophy.
Okay.
But it wasn't until Kant that I thought, oh, it's starting to get interesting, you know.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Kant was a weird dude.
Yeah, he was. I don't know how he was able to write all that stuff without traveling, without experiencing anything, and yeah, he was just.
He was what we would today call an incel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I get
100%.
it.
He never left his town. He was born. Yeah, I have to teach when I teach ethics. I have to teach his. I mean, it's just not required, but it would be irresponsible not to teach Kantian ethics. So I know, and it's so tedious trying to explain his system. As I'm sure you know if you studied Kant, because it's like you had to explain so much because he uses like words in weird ways. I shouldn't say weird ways, but he like defines them in a whole bunch in weird ways and the way he. But I don't know. I try to get students to laugh because like there was some weird stuff that he did. So like he was against masturbation and he had an argument against it, right? Because it conflicts with the second formulation of the categorical imperative, right? Of never using is it's always use others, or no, it's never use others as a mere means, but always as an ends in themselves, right? Okay, and so if you masturbate, you're using yourself just as a mere means, and therefore you shouldn't do it. So he was
I love
against
using myself.
masturbation. Huh?
I love using myself.
Same here. But anyway, so like the story goes that so that he wouldn't be tempted, he would have his like houseboy like fucking wrap him in like a tight sheet so that like he wouldn't be tempted to. And I'm like, man. So
I think it's how Mitt Romney sleeps. I'm mistaken.
no shit. There's actually like the fucking Mormons. They actually do similar shit, like have like weird contraptions and stuff, and like
Magic underwear.
magic underwear. But have you ever heard of like what's called Mormon soaking?
No, I don't think so. No.
Okay, here's Mormon soaking. This is fucking weird. So they're obviously very against premarital sex, right? So usually people that are against premarital sex find clever ways around it, like, oh, it was just a blowjob. Oh, it was just anal sex. That's not really sex. So how the Mormons do it and is it's not, I shouldn't say all of them, but look it up. Google Mormon soaking. I'm not making this up. That's what it's called, Mormon soaking, where it's like the man will just insert his penis in the vagina, and like there won't be any thrusting. There's like no thrusting, and it's like
that sounds fun.
No, it doesn't.
I should try that. See how it works.
You know, yeah, tell your wife, hey, dear, we're gonna do fucking Mormon soak.
I'll just stuff it in with the balls and let it marinate.
Okay, now you're obligated to do that. You got to report back to me tomorrow. You're probably going to tell you to go fuck yourself. Like,
oh yeah, I'll make a full report because now I'm invested.
Oh Christ! But no, that's what they do. So I don't even know what we were talking about.
Talk about Kant being the original incel.
Oh yeah, the original. Yeah, so to the best of my knowledge, yeah, I mean, yeah, he was. So which philosophers did you really gravitate toward? You said the French ones, like Foucault. I assume you liked Foucault, right?
I'm still getting into that, but it's mainly the existentialists.
Okay.
Sartre and Camus, primarily Camus. It's mainly the idea of having to create your own meaning to make life, livable, worthy, worthwhile. I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, there was a dark period, I should say, when I was like really into Schopenhauer and Saran.
Yeah, Schopenhauer and Saran. Yeah, that's I'm talking about.
Yeah, but you need to take breaks from that.
Ligotti. Have you read Ligotti?
Not yet, but it's on my list. It's like everyone's talking about him.
That's like Schopenhauer. That's like fucking supercharged Schopenhauer. Yeah, Conspiracy Against the Human Race. Philip Mainlander, he's pretty good. And these and Zaff, like when if you read Conspiracy Against the Human Race, he references Peter Zaff. Like these are people that like, you will find no comfort in these guys. Like these guys, it's like, you think Schopenhauer was pessimistic? You ain't seen nothing yet. Not after you read like Mainlander, his one line is life is hell and death is the sweet annihilation of that hell. Or I think that's what it is. There's this great article that I have saved. It's really great. 6 philosophers that hated existence. Yeah, and let me get the exact quote. I have it ready because I read it because it's like finally somebody I can relate to. And then there was like, huh?
I was gonna say one of the things I like the most or appreciate the most about Schopenhauer is that I think it was him that he threw his landlady down the stairs.
No, she faked it. I looked that up. It was, I think she was this old crone, and she knew that he came from some kind of money. And so he spent like the last, I think he spent like 20 years paying it back because she like faked her fall down. And then like when she died, he was like very glad about that. Like he had wrote like a thing about like finally this old crone is off my back or whatever. But yeah, anyway, let me find. Yeah, so Philip Mainlander, yeah, his line that I like so much is life is hell and the sweet still night of absolute death is the annihilation of that hell. I think he committed suicide.
Makes sense.
Yeah, he thought that like the death of God, like God died and like that was like what created the world was like God's like soiling of the universe with his death. I'll have to send you this article. It's really
That's
great.
interesting.
And then there was a blind poet, Al Mamari, back in like medieval. Fuck, where was he? He was. I'd never heard about some of these guys, but yeah. Anyway, I'm going on too much. And then there was like a hunchback, Giacomo Leopardi. I'm slaughtering these names. But yeah, these people did not have great lives. But no, not Philip Mainlander. Yeah, Peter Zaff. You'd like his article. It's the fuck is it? The Last Messiah. Yeah, and if you read that after you read Conspiracy Against the Human Race, because the Gotti bangs on about Peter Zaff quite a bit.
The Germans, right?
Some were Germans. I have to look at their nationalities again. One was the Alma Mari was a blind poet back in the medieval times, atheist, antinatalist. I mean, so it's fucking shocking that he, yeah, he had nothing but contempt for like religion and whatnot. So I got to give him mad respect for that. But yeah, yeah. In reading the existentialists, I hope you don't like. I got to keep my fingers crossed. Please don't. I'm begging you. We can't lose somebody else to fucking Jordan Peterson. Please, I'm begging you. Don't go down that. Don't. I mean, I'm like desperately begging everybody that gets into existentialism.
Well,
They eventually stumble upon that fucking charlatan.
I don't like him anymore. Let's put it that way. I did get into him in a few years ago when he published the 12 Rules for Life, and I thought that was pretty cool. As long as everything was, as long as he was talking about, biology and stuff, that part I agree with. But I don't like him now because everything is all being hyped up, him being, super provocative about certain things. And I kind of lost interest because now it's all about attention.
That's how it's always been. There's an old video where he's dressed up like a fucking 1920s gangster, and he's giving this talk about like, how he was upset about. I should find it. I want to find it. It's kind of hard to find, but he's dressed up literally like, it's like, are you about to get into like a fucking like a 1920s? No, this guy's been wanting attention for a long time.
Wanting revenge for a long time. He's a very angry guy.
He's a very angry guy, for reasons that I can't figure out, because he's like winning at life. Why are you so angry, dude? And like when you read like it's just nonsense. Like 12 Rules for Life, like something like the advice is either obvious. It's like that self-help navel gazing bullshit, or it's just wrong, right? I have to go through the rules, like, but it's just like, okay, like, yeah, or it's just stupid. Like there's like a part where isn't there a part where he fantasizes about beating up a 2-year-old because like the 2-year-old had an advanced, if I remember right, he's like, this kid was stepping on, my daughter's toes, and this kid had this advanced philosophy of contempt. A 2-year-old. He's thinking that this is a 2-year-old, and he talks about like.
No, he had his ways of teaching that kid. That apparently it was just throwing tantrums like nonstop, and he was just being calm. Like I think he was pinching him every time he was like misbehaving, and he eventually that kid stopped. So that was his way of not shouting, not no violence, but he was just pinching that kid or something until it really pissed the kid off, and it eventually stopped or something.
See, but I don't know why you'd have a problem with the kid behaving that way, because isn't that kid just trying to be the top lobster, right? He's just trying to exert his dominance and be the top lobster. So why should he have a problem with the kid behaving in that way? See, this is the charlatanism of Jordan Peterson. Is he'll say one thing and then it'll contradict something else. Like he should encourage what the kid's doing.
The rules apply to other people, not him.
Exactly. And or he'll set up these like, or if you listen to him talk, right? If you ever listen to him talk, and it's like, motherfucker, distill this into a sentence. Like this can be a sentence. Sorry, I just have a hatred for Jordan Peterson just because it's just like. And then he talks about like Marxism, and he has no fucking idea what Marxism is, and he'll talk about different political stuff without the slightest idea of like what the fuck he's talking about. And the fact that like a guy like that can rise to fame is really an indictment that like And at the end of the book, 12 Rules for Life, right? I mean, he's got this whole, he drones on about a pen of light, right? A pen of light.
I don't remember.
I mean,
His
ideas are
this
dangerous.
man is a retard. This man is a retard.
Yeah. I mean, if anyone who defends the status quo is a dangerous person, because the status quo is killing people daily. So
yeah,
I don't have any respect for him.
Well, and like the thing is he's all about like, how hierarchies are natural and whatnot, and it's like, but he doesn't understand that how like different changes have happened it's because of overthrowing hierarchies. Like, what does he think the Enlightenment was? Like, that was overthrowing the hierarchy of the divine right of kings. Like, that's what it was. But he's all about supporting sort of traditional hierarchies because who does it benefit? Him.
Huh.
And he's got this really weird conspiratorial mind of like cultural Marxism, which isn't a thing except in the minds of anti-Semites. Like that's where it got its like, Cody, right? Like, didn't Nazis used to call people cultural Marxists, and that was just a shorthand for Jew, right?
Right.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm droning on too much about my hatred for Jordan Peterson, but
Well,
Cody can attest to it. He had to hear about Jordan Peterson every fucking week from James Incel fucking Bergman, banging on about Jordan Peterson. And it's like, ugh, enough with this guy. Pick somebody smart. Pick somebody who knows something. God damn. Anyway, sorry, I'm dominating too much.
No, I actually lost interest in Peterson, I think a year ago, I guess. I'm not even going to bother reading his, the 12 more rules for life or whatever it is, because I already seen some extracts, and it's very, like, provocative in a sense that it actually gets you angry. It even got me angry, and before that I wasn't, and now I can see that he's like super conservative and like really wants to, maintain all the traditions and all that shit. But there was one extract, something about he was judging couples that are living together that are just merely common law and are not married. So he says, well, the reason you guys are not married is because you are looking for better options out there. It's like, what the heck? Who? You are not in a position to judge people like that. It's like, because he wants them to get married and have kids, like what he thinks is normal.
Like any good fascist.
Yep, like any good fascist. Yep.
I mean, I was reading secondary research books on that, and in a way, I understand where he's getting at, because nowadays, less and less people are getting married and having kids, and in 50 years' time, okay, I get it. The planet is going to have more old people and barely any young people. And I think if he's like one of those people who want to keep the world populated, then okay, whatever. That's what you want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I want to see a desert, so I'm not with him on that.
I don't care.
Huh?
I don't really care. I know I don't want kids, and I'm not planning on getting married. And it's like,
Well,
this is the world today.
But that's how you get meaning. You get married and you have kids. And if you don't have kids, how are you going to possibly find the meaning to structure your life and orient yourself towards the correct conception of reality? That's the reason that you're unhappy and all your relationships will fail.
Oh yeah.
That's like exactly what he would say, right? Like, you can just parrot, you can just off the cuff parrot what this guy says.
Yeah. And another thing that really bothered me was how he views neuroticism as a negative thing, like all the time. And it's usually women, it's like, before
of course. Yeah.
Before that, I mean, I wasn't offended by any of the way he criticized women. I wasn't offended by it at all until like that, when he talks about neuroticism. I mean,
Well, and here's the thing too, is like, here's the problem with psychology is it's a Band-Aid, right? Is that
Right.
when you go in to see a therapist, and I'm not saying that it's not necessary, but it's like human beings, how they manifest in the world is a direct reflection of the society that they grow up in. So if you see a lot of health problems, mental illness, that's symptomatic of a sick society. And so a psychologist doesn't want to deal with that, right? They want to they want to say, oh, it's all on the individual, and you have to sort of orient yourself towards the society. But why should I be well adjusted to a society where it commodifies human beings, right? I mean, I can only speak for America, but I bet Canada is much the same way to one degree or another, where everything's a commodity, where we exploit people, we view people all through this capitalist lens and completely ignore their basic needs, mental, spiritual, oftentimes physical, right? I'm supposed to somehow be well adjusted to a system like that? Like, no. But it seems like that's especially Jordan Peterson is egregious in like, well, if you're not oriented towards that, like there's something wrong with you. When it's like, no, motherfucker, there's something wrong with the way society is structured. You know?
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, the system is anti-human.
Yeah, it's anti-human. And like also he's like one of the most like thin-skinned dweebs because like if you like attack him, he gets like all offended, and it's like, buddy, I admire him in this way. Like he's taken up the mantle of free speech. Good for you.
Yeah.
But like him and his followers, like if you say anything that's like less than flattering about him, like they get like super triggered. And it's like, free speech cuts both ways. Jordan Peterson can go out and spew his nonsense, but then people like me and Cody or other people, can trash him for the garbage that's coming out of his ass. And you kind of got to take it in a way, right? You can't just like moan about it, like, oh.
Yeah. He gets mad and drops big curse words like bucko and things.
Yeah. He thinks he's like edgy. He's trying to be edgy. And it's also like amazing to me, like, too, like this fucking guy's given self-help when, like, I think it was somebody criticized me because I said this, but it's like, he's always talking about, like, one of his rules is get your house in perfect order before going out and changing the world. Well, then shut the fuck up, Jordan Peterson. Like, your goofy daughter drug you over to Russia. You were put into a coma and you suffer from how many medical problems? I'm not blaming him for that, right? Like Cody sent me a video where like, didn't he like eat a tomato and it almost killed him?
Yeah, it was apple cider.
Apple cider, like a fucking apple almost took him out. Okay, fine. I mean, I feel bad. I mean, I don't wish that on anybody.
Apple cider.
But then, huh?
Apple cider of doom.
The apple cider of doom. But at the same time, if you're going to say, get your house in perfect order, meanwhile, you were hooked on benzos, you were taken over to Russia, put into a coma, you cry about Christianity all the time. Clearly, your house is in imperfect order, so you should kind of take your own advice, right? But then again, there's a lot of that sweet, sweet money to be made from selling that self-help book, right? Those self-help books. Soon there'll be another 12 more rules, right?
12 more rules.
12 more rules. And he's flying around giving fucking talks to like bourgeoisie, middle class, rich cunts charging. Cody, you and I looked that up, or it was looked up one time what he was charging in some places, and for some places it was like $500 a ticket.
Yeah, some places.
And he came to Chicago, where you're at, and in like the nosebleeds, it was like 50, right?
Yeah.
To see this moron talk, right? So it's like he
Yeah,
can
he was
drone
a
on
few
about
days
help.
ago.
Yeah. So you see, like
21st,
he
I
can,
think.
so like he can like drone on about helping people, but how much do you really want to help people if the class of people who can afford the ticket are only like middle class and rich people? Then you're just like placating them, right?
Yeah,
Sorry, we're droning on about this way too much. I got going on it and I derailed. Let's get back to you, Paula, because it's more important we talk about you than
yeah.
some Canadian charlatan. Let's talk about somebody somebody who's not a Canadian charlatan. Paula Deckard. There we go.
Oh, I'm not Canadian. I'm not even gonna get citizenship because I'm gonna lose my German citizenship. Like, so in Germany you can't have dual citizenship, and well, with permanent residency you just have to renew it every 5 years.
Okay, if you don't mind, want to talk about your new? I mean, you mentioned you had something else in the works. You had something you were working on another book. If you wouldn't mind kind of talking about that, so some of the viewers have something to look forward to beyond going and reading Heart Like a Whole. I think you mentioned you had something. It's like a memoir of sorts, right?
It's gonna be a semi-autobiographical book.
Okay.
So I want to focus more on the fiction side of things. Like, well, it's kind of based on my college years with some flashbacks of my childhood in the 90s. But yeah, I'm still working on it. I started on it 2 years ago almost, and then I just got distracted. And there's so much I need to change because I don't know. It's complicated writing about something that's very personal. I mean, I'm pretty sure that Cody, yeah, you get that. And how much you really wants you, I don't know. Again, I just suck talking about my work.
Well, I'm excited about it. I think memoir is probably my favorite genre, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
I enjoy a good memoir.
My memoir will be something I would eventually consider, years down the road. But right now, I just want to, I don't know, to work more on that semi-autobiographical stuff.
Mm.
Yeah.
Because my first book, in a way, was semi-autobiographical if you take into account the emotions that that my heart surgeon is going through, because she's so detached, but there's like a lot underneath. And yeah, I actually wrote an essay and I submitted it to Neda Area, and I was talking about that as well. Like, when you write fiction, or most of the motivations come from your own like personal emotions.
Wait, are you going to be, so you wrote an essay for her. Are you going to be in her, I forget the name of it. She's going to fucking kill me if I don't remember it. In her newest?
I think it's called Sokut. What's it, Creed of Slaves or something?
Oh, nice.
I
You
don't
and I
know.
will be in that.
I don't know. I submitted. I haven't heard from her, so I don't know whether I'll be part of it.
Yeah, you and I will be, I mean, assuming she accepts it, you and I will be in that one. Cody, is she in the magazine too?
Yeah, she is. Yeah.
Oh, sweet. So we're crossing paths.
I was super excited. It's like, Cody's the first one that ever accepted something from me.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that'll be coming out hopefully within the next few weeks. So
Nice.
I'm polishing up the final edits now. So
Yeah, probably don't when you read the magazine, from what I've heard, don't be like eating anything. Like, I gotta tell you a story, Cody. So Courtney, before the about 10 minutes before the podcast, Courtney messaged me and said she's doing some edits on my piece. And I said, I hope you're not eating while you're doing that. 'Cause she goes, don't worry, I ate before. She's like, I ate some chocolates, and I go, oh, wrong color to.
yeah, yeah.
Wow. So what's your piece gonna be? What's your piece like in for Cody's?
Well, what was the theme? Your first time you had sex or something. So
Yeah, pretty
yeah,
much.
it's based on that.
It's good.
Well, I wasn't sure how fictional you were supposed to be, but for my story, it was like at least 65 to 70% like true.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
the goal was really supposed to be like true stories, but then it kind of evolved into fiction. So yeah.
Yeah, my piece was from was a fictionalized account of a guy that I used to work with. So just so people don't,
I think I
please.
remember you talking about it. I can't remember which part I was watching, but you were talking about it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Maybe this is a good, if you don't mind. Like, I mean, again, if at any moment you feel uncomfortable, you don't want to reveal, that's fine. But I mean, I'll reveal my. I mean, I'll reveal it. I'm sure Cody will be open to it. But like, what was the weirdest sexual experience you had?
Do you ask this everybody? I remember
Yeah,
you asked Melissa as well.
yeah. I mean, I probably won't ask Lauren, just because, I mean, I'll be like intimidated, right? Because she's got this way about her. But I mean, of course. I mean, I asked Gareth, but he didn't want to spill the beans. Fill in the blank why. But of course, we ask everybody. I mean, I'll tell you. I mean, don't worry. I'll tell you what my weirdest one was too. This is not putting you on the spot. I'll humiliate myself too. So.
Well, there were maybe two. One was being spanked the first time. I hated it. I didn't like it. I actually like, what the fuck was that? And it was like, oh, that was 10 years ago or something, or longer. But yeah, I got spanked. It was like a proper spank, and it hurt, and I was like, what the heck? And I stopped. It's like, and I think I ruined the whole mood, but I don't like to be spanked, and that's when I realized it. And the second incident, probably, I had an ex once who had a hard time coming. So you will probably think, oh, good stamina and shit. But actually, I'm the person who likes to give. It's probably weird for you to hear from a woman, but
No.
I'm more of a giver than a taker. So yeah, and I don't. And that ex actually never had anyone making him come via, blowjobs until me. But it took me probably like 45 minutes or longer, I think.
Jesus.
And yeah, it was, oh God, I couldn't feel my lips for two days. I think I felt like I had rubbed off my lips. It was just.
Wow.
Yeah,
Dang.
Never again. Huh?
Never again a 45-minute blowjob. No way.
Fuck.
Jesus Christ. The guy needs a blowjob robot instead. God damn. All right, so turnaround's fair play. So you revealed stuff. The weirdest one, and I've mentioned this before. I think the weirdest one was, there was this woman who, she hit me up. I actually forget how well I knew her. I don't. It wasn't a random encounter, but I like barely knew her. But she must have sensed like that there was a degenerate streak in me, right? Because sometimes if you're like a degenerate, you can kind of spot others that are like that. Like, I bet you're into some nasty shit. Okay. So she hit me up and she's like, my husband wants to have a three-way. Are you down? I'm like, okay. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, not really down for having like another guy there, but whatever. If that's what's gonna, if I get a blowjob out of it, like I'll just pretend the other guy isn't fucking there, and then that'll be fine. I mean, so the funny, he's doing it from behind, she's blowing me, but he put a cock ring on, and it was too tight. Cody, you remember me telling this story, right? He put a cock ring on, but it was too tight. He's like, oh, it gets too tight. She like he had to like pull out, and his fucking like dick was like purple. So he had to like take the cock ring off, and he's like, it was just really awkward after that, right? Because it like killed the mood, right? But it all worked out in the end, and
Yeah, those can be kind of dangerous. You can't wear those for very long.
no, you can't. He had like a really tight one. I don't know why he needed it. But I think he was just like experimenting or whatever. But they never invited me back. Because I hit her up. I'm like, hey, you want to do this again? He's like, no. I'm like, oh well. Okay, so that's
awkward
fine.
for him.
Yeah, it was a little bit awkward. I didn't shame him or anything. Like I wasn't mean to him. I mean, I wasn't. I was just like, oh man, that sucks. But so that was probably just because it killed the mood. Because it's like, I mean, when you're in the midst of that sort of animalistic fucking, all sense of reason and ration, you're just into that raw power of it. And then when that spell is broken, it's kind of hard to get back into it. And so it felt almost mechanical getting back into it. Like, well, I guess we better finish. So we just did that. And so Cody, what about you? What was one of your weird ones?
I guess it was probably the time when I was in front of a group of people in a hotel on New Year's Eve. Yeah. Which I think it was.
Oh yeah, that's how you met your wife, wasn't it?
Yeah, she was there. Yeah. Yeah. She watched. But yes, it was like a group, around and those things.
Was it like a proper orgy? Was it like a orgy?
No, it was just me and some other partner. And yeah, so there's, I don't know how it came up, but somebody said something about like they wanted to watch. And so I was like, hey, I'm down. If anyone wants to, you can watch me. And it's kind of went from there.
But I love that like that's how you met your wife.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Yeah, she's like a friend of a friend, something like that. Yeah.
So was she so Cody, was she like, I really like the way you fucked, like I want to get I want to get in on some of that.
Yeah, that's what I like to tell myself anyway. Yeah. That's how it worked out.
Yeah.
It was fun though.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in like relationships, like sexual negotiation is, well, I think I talk about this piece in my I don't want to drone on about myself too much, but no, I talk about like how just like be open and honest like with your partner.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like when you're, I don't know, like when you're in your 20s, a lot of times you try to pass yourself off as like a nice guy, right? Like Joey Diaz, he has this thing about, he's like, yeah, when you're in your 20s, you try to pass yourself off as a nice guy. Meanwhile, you're getting firecrackers, lit off your ball sack. And it's not until you're in your 30s that you're just like honest with somebody and you just tell them like what you're into. So I guess that's probably, I don't know, if the guy would have if people felt more open to just be like what they're into, Because I bet if the guy told you, like, I feel bad, I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable. I won't press. I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable. So I have questions, but I can sort of see. I don't want. This is not an angle to pursue, so we'll switch. Cody, you have something to chime in about?
Oh, yeah. So, well, I mean, yeah, open communication is important. I'll just reiterate that. So, yeah, don't feel ashamed about any of your kinks. We all have them. And then I guess, yeah, we'll move on. So, yeah, we're not about making people feel uncomfortable here.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
and again, don't feel shy. Like if I ask something that you're like, I don't want to talk about, like by all means, just I'm not going to feel offended, or Cody won't. Like we don't want to make you feel like, oh no, like. But yeah. So
I'm pretty open about stuff.
okay,
Can try me.
okay. Who would you say are like your biggest literary influences? Like who really, like what group of writers, or even pieces, doesn't have to be a writer, maybe just a piece, or that really, when you sit back to like to write something, in some ways in the back of your mind of like maybe not emulating their style, but you're just like, oh, they did that really cool. I kind of want to experiment, experiment a little bit with that, or they really sort of like got you into the craft. How about we go in that direction?
How far back should I go? Okay, I have to admit I was kind of ruined by romance. I remember being like 11 or 12 and I was reading Nicholas Sparks. He used to be like that guy that I absolutely loved. And but that sort of gave me too much hope in the realm of love until I just constantly fell on my fucking face and realized that I'm sick of this shit. But also, I felt that I was saved by Charles Bukowski because I got into him when I was about 14, I think. I picked up my first book. I can't remember what got me to do that because I heard of him and I was like, this guy sounds interesting. And I was only 14. And I picked up Women. It had a very strange German translation. I bought it in German, and I think I told Cody about it. The translation was "The Love Life of a Hyena." That was the title in German.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. I was like, I never seen so much shit, like so much. It was pure porn to me at the time, because he was talking about vagina sizes and then constantly talking about this woman that looked like Catherine Heaven, and then I was like, I like this guy. And then I picked up another book. I picked up Post Office. That's one of my favorites. It's like, it's so funny because he gets home one day after work, enters the wrong apartment, but the key worked. So he enters the apartment of some random lady and ends up fucking her. I was like, this is so funny. Yeah, and that was when I really got into him, and I was reading How and Rye, which is one of my favorite books. I couldn't get into his poetry, and in general, I'm not much of a poet myself. But yeah, he kind of taught me that you could write in a certain way, and I guess this is how it started.
See, that's interesting because I always like, for me, the attraction to him, and maybe this is the attraction for you, is just don't give a shit honesty. Yeah, just
Honesty.
the pure honesty. I have to admit, like, it's the reverse for me. I love his poetry because I like the fact that there's just a complete lack of pretension, and it just strikes the emotion. Now, a lot of people, like a lot of in the trans fiction community, might want to string me up for this, but I find his prose okay. It's good, but I don't think it's great. Like when you, it's like it's okay. But for me, I'm just the opposite. Like his poetry is where it sings. Like, just because it's got that honesty, and there's no, you don't, it's straightforward, and you don't have to try to riddle out. He doesn't try to dress up some kind of message and some kind of elaborate coat. It's just, bam, here it is.
Yeah.
No time for metaphor.
No time for that. Yeah, it's just boom. Here's the message, and like that's kind of what drew me to do poetry. Was like, without Bukowski, I would never have done poetry. I always thought poetry was like pretentious ass sniffing, and then I was like him, and I'm like, you can do that. And maybe that was like with you for prose, where you read like women and all of this, and you're like, holy shit, you can actually like do that. I mean, is that approximately right? Like, yeah, okay.
But I had to kind of weigh it out a bit. I'm also a huge fan of Hemingway, and I know that a lot of people, judge him for lacking in emotion and stuff. And I'm like, dude, you guys have to like look at the imagery, because he uses metaphors,
Yeah.
And that's what I like, and that was also part of my influence for my first book, like the whole show don't tell kind of thing when it comes to emotions. So I learned a lot from Hemingway in that regard.
The thing about Bukowski is that when it comes to poetry in particular, is that he sort of took poetry back out of the academy and gave it to the people.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm not. His novels are fine, and his short stories. I mean, they're good, but I don't know. I mean, what I like about him, and I think this might be also what you like about him, Paul. I don't. You all tell me differently if I'm wrong. Is just that honesty, just that willingness to be like, I can be this honest. Like I can just I don't have to hold back.
Yeah, the honesty and his sense of, is endurance the right word? Like he still gets out of bed, he still does everything, and he still tries to fit in and still gets a job. And it's like, even though all that is kind of killing him, all he's asking for is just some quiet time alone with his drink and whatever. But yeah, that kind of motivated me as well, the sense that he's not giving up.
Yeah, because he didn't really achieve any kind of real notoriety until what, like late 40s, early 50s.
Mm-hmm.
And he had been grinding it out from 20s, 30s. I just kept at it. Just because that's what was in his blood, right? And I think, I don't know if there's any writing advice that I give. It just comes from his tombstone, which is don't try, right?
Yeah.
Like don't try to be something that you're not. And I think that's where a lot of writers, they stumble, or they overthink a piece, or they'll overthink their writing, and it's just like, and it's like a very Taoist notion too. Like just don't try on several levels. Like don't try too hard, force a piece, let it take its natural progression, but also don't try to be something you're not. Like I'll never be a hoity-toity, flowery language writer. I just won't. I know what I am, and presumably you do too, and just embrace that. He knew what he was, and he embraced it, and I love that. Yeah. Okay, so besides Bukowski and Hemingway, so those are probably your two earliest. Who, like, let's progress further. Who else would you say you also draw upon?
Well, when I went to, well, Bret Easton Ellis would be next. I know they're all guys, but it's just like I like male authors. um, yeah, Bret Easton Ellis. Then there's Kafka, and there's Michelle Houellebecq. Well, Houellebecq would probably be the only one that's still alive, and Bret Easton Ellis. I don't know who else.
Those are good influences. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've got two of Houellebecq's. I've got Atomized and Serotonin. I haven't read them yet, but heard that those are like two of his best, right?
Yeah, definitely. I read all his novels, and the only one I didn't like was Submission, which was the Islam-based one. Yeah, I didn't like that one.
Didn't he also get trashed for Platform? Because didn't Platform have like, didn't they try to censor him for that because of like Islamophobia or some shit like that?
Yeah. That was, I think, that was the one about sex tourism. Yeah.
Yeah, when he goes down to fucking, what is it, like the Southeast Asian islands or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He has a book out. Well, not him. I think it was published by I can't remember his name. He's a French philosopher, kind of a public intellectual type, Levy or something like that. Anyway, he had like correspondence with Houellebecq, and then he published all the letters. And it's a pretty interesting book. It's called Public Enemies, I think.
Yeah.
Doesn't he also have like stuff on like? Doesn't he have a book on Lovecraft and Schopenhauer too?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Schopenhauer.
he wrote essays.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah. Yeah, oddly enough, for me, Lovecraft was an interesting influence on me. I think because of the detached, because like I mean, we all know Lovecraft was not well, like he did not interact with people, and I think like for me, I was kind of drawn to that because I probably not to the extent of you, Paula, but I did feel that kind of alienation as well. And so when I read Lovecraft and it had that kind of very detached style, I was drawn to it. I mean, obviously some of his pieces were I didn't obviously like where he just describes a city, but there's some that are really good. And you can really tell, like, I mean, and like description he does really well, but you can also tell like Lovecraft probably never interacted with very many people because his dialogue is so fucking horrific.
I was going to say
Right? It's just god awful, but but his descriptions are like just bangers, right? Speaking of, so I'm a huge fan of Kafka, so I always ask. Everybody says like, "What's your favorite? What are your favorite pieces by Kafka?"
God, it's been so long since I've read his stuff. Probably his diaries and then Metamorphosis. I like the trial as well, but I still liked his diary. His journal's the best, I think. I have it in German at home. It's super thick, and I was like, those were the diaries that his friend was supposed to burn or get rid of or destroy.
I know.
Cody, wasn't his that it wasn't Max Brod? Wasn't most of his stuff he had instructed to be burned? Like the trial was supposed to be burned. Like I think we would have relatively little Kafka if it wouldn't have been for Max Brod. Is that his name, Max Brod?
I forgot his friend's
Remember his name really, but
Yeah, like most of his stuff he had instructed to just burn. During his life, how much did Kafka actually publish? Not much, right?
No. Oh, there's one thing I never hear people talk about. His is so funny. In Germany, he is actually not always celebrated. Not many people like him. They always call him they call him a coward, mainly because of his father issues. And there's I never read such a long letter to someone, but his letter to his dad, where he just really, roasts him and resents him for everything, for how he was brought up, for all these bad negative emotions he grew up with. Like, oh my God. I don't even remember whether his dad ever got to read it, but yeah, that was
Why
one
would
of the
that make
most
him
painful things.
why would that make him a coward? That would make him a hero, right? Confronting
I think
his...
it's like, I think not confronting him in person, like throughout the years, he always just, respected his dad, just,
Okay.
never confronted him, just being silent about it until he wrote him a letter. But I just can't remember whether he ever read it or not. I think he did, but he didn't have anything to say.
Yeah, Metamorphosis seems to be... I might have to reread that story again, because I remember I thought it was fine, but I didn't...
I think one reason I could relate to it so well is by the time he turns to an insect, he just can't communicate. And I felt like that in school. I couldn't talk to people.
Yeah.
Even so, in a way, that was something that helped me relate.
Yeah, I think for me, the two that stood out were The Hunger Artist and In the Penal Colony. And I think it stood out just because of the pure nihilism of both pieces, right? Like, why was the Hunger Artist doing what he was doing? There was no reason. And then you had the Penal Colony, where people were tortured with this extravagant contraption, and it's like, why? There's no reason, all right? And then the trial, especially, like, the nihilism in the trial was really good, but in a way, it's almost like a metaphor for. I mean, I always viewed it as a metaphor, as like, you don't have to be like, even though he never finds out what he's guilty of, like, all of us are guilty of something, right? Like, we all like if an authority figure were to come to any of our doors and say, you're being charged with something, we would all be like, we all may deny it, but in the back of our minds, we've all done shit that we know that we've gotten away with, right? Like, none of us are innocent. And I always point to the trial with all of these like cancel culture people, and it's like, read that, right? Like, nobody, like, you don't have to know what you're guilty of, but like, we've all done shit that we're not proud of. And if somebody were to say, hey, I'm not going to tell you what you did, but you did something wrong, you would have, if you were honest, you would say, yep, there was something I did. And I think that's what resonated with me, was just I mean, I don't know how much you got in trouble at school, but I mean, for me, it resonated because, for me, it was a lot. And oftentimes I knew I had pulled 3 or 4 different things that day. And then if like a week would go by, there'd be like 20 things. And so whenever they would tell me to come down to the principal's office, I'd have to rattle in my mind what I did and like what I could have possibly been in trouble for, to come up with some kind of a lie. And I was like, oh shit, it could have been this or this or this or this or this. And oftentimes it was like none of that. And I was like, oh, must have missed something. So, I mean, that kind of hit home to me. But Cody, you mentioned that Metamorphosis was like, that you viewed it as like a metaphor for work. How like a job will like literally change you. Yeah, like you'll become something you're not. Like, it'll just like kill your. I mean, that, which is true. Like, it'll just utterly kill your soul in a way, until you become this thing that.
Yeah, it'll make you non-human.
Yeah. What do you think of that, Paula? Do you think that that's a good approximation, or not approximation, interpretation?
I don't know. Probably have to reread the story as well. I didn't see it from that perspective. But now that you said it, it kind of makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything that you wanted to talk about specifically before we wrap up?
I don't know.
Okay. Okay. I didn't know if you had anything you specifically
pressure.
wanted to talk about. But
I wasn't really
Yeah.
prepared. I'm just always like super scared of this. It's like, oh God, I have to do a presentation or something at school. It's like that same kind of feeling whenever I'm invited to a podcast.
well, hopefully you felt comfortable, because
Yeah.
I mean,
I mean, I
I've
know you
interacted.
guys better now too, which is a huge plus. Before, like a year ago, when I first started speaking to people, I was like, oh my God, I don't even know these people. They don't know me. It's like, how is it gonna go?
Yeah. Cody, you should when you put this up, link Heart Like a Hole. See if we can get Paula some
I'll do that.
sales for that. No, seriously, like that's what I mean. If this podcast serves any purpose other than us just besides us being degenerates, it's the guests we have on. If they've got work out there, we want people to check it out. Like, we don't fuck around with people that we don't like and whatever. So yeah, definitely. Yeah, get it. Speaking of have you seen, before we wrap up, have you seen American Mary?
Oh, you recommended it before. I haven't. No, not yet.
I think you might dig it. Again, haven't I have to again reiterate my ignorance, but yeah, it's a great transgressive film about like body modification, like extreme body modification of this woman getting sucked into that world. And it kind of reminded me of when I read the description on Heart Like a Hole. I'm like, this sounds kind of like something Paula might like. It sounds like something you might dig. I loved it. It fucked me up. Some of the shit that goes on, I'm like, what the fuck? Yeah, it's a good movie. It's a good movie. Huh?
I haven't seen it.
You'd like it, I think. Yeah.
I'll check
So
it out.
yeah, everybody get Heart Like a Hole, and look out for Paula's new. What's it titled?
I might change the name. Currently, it's called Passing Crushes, but
Okay.
it just sounds so young adult. I don't know if I might change it.
So yeah, look out for that. Hopefully, like, do you have a?
Oh God, I don't have a release date. It's
Okay.
I'm still like in the middle of like rewriting chapters, adding new chapters, and oh God, I don't know. I'm so slow at everything. Like the first novel taking me 10 years, and then a whole year to just publish it. I don't know.
Cormac McCarthy is the same way. So
Yeah, his new book is like, I think he's publishing two at the same time, and they're kind
yeah,
of connected. And that's been like, he hasn't published anything since The Road, I think.
yeah, 2006, right? Cody, is it like 2006?
I think
Yeah.
so. Yeah.
He
Yeah, he's
takes
also,
forever though. Yeah, he takes forever. But what's funny about Cormac McCarthy is, you know, that he doesn't hang around writers, right?
I'm not too sure about his personal life now.
When he goes to parties, he makes a conscious attempt to avoid them, and he'll go and talk to physicists. Yeah, that's where he chills. Like, so seriously, like, that's where he chills. Like, I forget Is he still living in Texas? I think he lives in Texas, right?
I'm not sure. I was thinking maybe Colorado, but I'm not sure.
But wherever it is, like he doesn't hang around other writers. He hangs around like he'll like people who are more in the know have to look that up. But I just found out about his new. He had 2 new books coming out like yesterday. I was like, what? And I looked at, whoa, it's like a 2 box. Like I'm excited for that because his shit is great.
Right.
Yeah, I got into him when he published The Road, and then I read To Country for Old Men, and then after that I read Child of God, and it doesn't seem like anyone knows that book. That book is
I love
so
Child
dark.
of God.
It's so dark, but nobody talks about it. Everyone's all about Blood Meridian and all that stuff, and I'm like, yeah, they're good, but his earlier stuff is so much like,
Yeah.
well,
Blood Meridian is good in the sense of the scope of it, of like I sold Courtney on it because I said like you have to think about it as like an epic poem guised as a verse. But what's brilliant about Blood Meridian is the way the violence is just so seamlessly weaved into the narrative, right? Like there's no pausing. It's just like horrific violence. Next minute, they're at the bar. Horrific violence. Then so it's like this flow, this nice like poetic flow where there's no stopping to ponder like this really horrific shit. But no, I'm with you though. I love Child of God. Like the one scene that sticks out was like the one part where there's like the car parked where like the people are having sex, so that kid goes and doesn't he start like jerking off like while the like couple are having sex?
I don't remember. I just remember the corpse that he just kept, and I was like, oh.
Yeah, he kept.
I actually like the movie too. Actually, it's a pretty good movie, I thought.
They made a
There's
movie
a
out of it?
movie?
Yeah, it's James Franco put it together.
Huh.
Really?
Yeah. It was James Franco. It was like a low budget, like under the radar sort of thing, because it was like I guess more like a passion project for him, because he's a big fan of McCarthy.
Paula, are you a fan of really bad movies that are so bad that they're good?
You know what? I watched the lowest rated horror movies ever, and I'll be on Prime or whatever, and just watching some of them are like independent horror, and I just watch it. It's so bad, and I just keep watching it.
You're the same.
Yeah,
Okay,
I am.
Okay, okay. I think this is still on Prime unless they took it off. You owe it to yourself. You have to. Okay, really. This is my new favorite bad film. And when I say it's one of those films that's so bad it's good. Cody, I think you've seen it. The Fanatic.
Oh my God! Yeah, that's the one
Have you seen
with
that?
Devon Sawa and John Travolta. Is that it?
Yeah. And Fred Durst from Limp Bizkit directed it.
I know.
You've got to watch. Wait. Have you
I
seen
watched
it?
it. Yes, I have.
First, it's just okay. You would agree that that movie is so fucking bad. It's amazing. Isn't that an amazingly bad movie?
Amazingly bad, and fuck, John Travolta was so good at acting it.
I don't know how Fred Durst convinced John Travolta to act in that piece of shit and to look like that. Like you look at like when people doubt me about this movie, I'm like, look at this picture of John Travolta in this movie. Look at this. Like if that doesn't sell you, and the dialogue is so bad, and it's overacted, and it's just wonderful. Cody, have you seen The Fanatic?
Oh, I've seen it.
Oh my God, dude. If you ever get a chance, you'll laugh your ass off.
This is another bad one, low budget. It's called, I don't know if you've watched it, it's called Rubber. It's a movie about a tire that just starts going on a rampage and it just starts killing people. It was made by this guy who, oh, what's his name? I have to look it up. That was this song that was a hit 20 years ago with this yellow puppet that was on the phone. Do you know which I'm talking about? Mr. Something, Mr. I have to look it up. He made that movie. It's called Rubber. It's about a tire that just, you know, comes to life and starts killing people.
Sounds hilarious. Yeah.
It's like that one movie, another one that not a lot of people know about. It was made in the I think it was made in the 70s. It's called The Bed That Eats People, or maybe it just might be The Bed That Eats. And here's the premise of this movie. The premise is something like there was like a satanic ritual, some blood spilled on the bed, and then when people fuck on the bed, it consumes them. Like that's the premise. And so they made this piece of shit movie and they never released it. But I think somebody like recently it was released as like a direct video, like 30 years later. And it is as bad as the premise suggests it is. Like like it even outdoes, I don't know, Troll 2 holds a special place in my heart for being like one of the best bad movies.
Troll 2.
Troll 2.
I watched one. Oh no, I think it's a different. It's called Cannibal Troll or something like that. It was
Okay.
hilariously bad.
Yeah, watch Troll 2 to give you a on how bad it is. It's called Troll 2. There are no trolls in the movie. So let that be the benchmark for how. And no, troll is not a metaphor for anything. It's just called Troll. They were banking on the first movie, which was fine. And then they just called the Troll 2 to, I think, bank on the success of the first one. But, oh, it's just bad. And then anything by Uwe Boll, German director, who made a lot of like video game movies. Blood Rain, Alone in the Dark. There was like a petition that got like 1 million signatures for him to like stop making movies because they were all like, if you look on like the combined ratings, like they're all like, none of his movies have done good. Like they've all flopped. He's got like 20 of them, but they're all so hilariously bad. Like they're just god awful. When I was in college, I had over at a friend's house, and we had a Uwe Boll fest where we just watched these shitty movies and we were just making fun of how fucking terrible they were. He like boxed fans too. Like I'll box. He's like, I'll box anybody who challenges me, you know, is challenged. So like, and to be fair, he was actually like a tough looking. So he did, I think, beat the shit out of some of these people. But just like, what is going on here? Like, but yeah.
Yeah,
Cody,
sorry?
No, Cody, what's one of your favorite bad movies?
Trying to think. I don't know. I don't really watch a lot of movies, to be honest.
Okay, what's one of your favorite bad books? Because I know you read a lot. So, like, if you had to, actually, you went on a tirade a while back about this one book about satanic cults or whatever. Like, you went, you went local on that book. I was like, what? The cover actually looked pretty intriguing, but you said it was a piece of shit or something.
Yeah, it was complete garbage. Yeah, it was all part of that '80s like scare of like satanic cults infiltrating the youth. sort of thing.
And
it's all
that's
just,
been
yeah, so
yeah, that's been
it was never
debunked.
real. Yeah, it was never real. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been debunked. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's all just garbage.
So this guy was writing as like a satanic cult investigator.
Right. Yeah. So he's like well, I guess he's like more like just an investigative journalist. But I appreciate that book ruined his career because I haven't really seen anything else from him.
Well, what made it bad though? If he was just reporting on it, was it because was it at the angle of no, these things were real, or was it just like what about the book was so bad?
Well, well, I mean, well, he didn't really write anything, to be honest. It was all just basically police reports or interviews, and I could just transcribe the interview. So that was one thing. And then it's just so obviously that didn't happen. Just the things that they would talk about, that they would find, like eating babies and so forth. And that's never is not happening. I mean,
yeah.
So.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one of those that I hated. I don't know, as far as movies, I don't know. I guess well, I will say the show. What's the name of that show that came out recently? It was about they're on an island. I'm trying to think of it. Like a priest comes back as his younger self or something. It's something about vampires. I can't think of the name of it now.
Oh, it escaped me too. On Netflix, right?
Yeah. So I watched about 3 episodes of that, and I couldn't take it anymore. So yeah, so I didn't even finish it.
I liked it in some ways. Yeah, what was it called?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. It had that's in my queue, I think. I was told it got better at the end. I never checked it out, but
that's what I heard too. Yeah, I couldn't make it.
As a whole, it was good. There was just a lot of talking and a lot of preaching and stuff, but I mean, there was a point to it. But for me, there was just too much talking that really, I don't know, had me lose interest. But the overall story was actually interesting.
Yeah, I've kind of given up for the most part on Netflix. I mean, I watch it sometimes, but God, like their originals are so bad. But there are some that are actually like really good that get panned. Like Mute is actually really good. And it's throughout the whole movie, the main character, doesn't talk. He's it was something, if I remember, I gotta watch it again. His vocal cords or something, and so he has to navigate the world, and he's like investigating his missing like girlfriend or something, but he doesn't talk because he can't. And I was like, wow, that's fascinating to have to be able to figure out a way to make a movie or even a book for that, or any kind of story where like your main character cannot talk and has to find other ways of communicating. Doesn't I mean I don't think he knows sign language or anything. It's awkward in a way, but it's awkward in the way you would expect it to be. I would highly recommend Mute. I think it was, like I said, panned, but then again, The Counselor is also one of my favorite movies, and that was a screenplay by Cormac McCarthy. And if you're not a Cormac McCarthy fan and you don't know like that, like the sort of the nihilistic undertonings of him and that like events just happen and there's no fucking rhyme or reason to it, you're not going to appreciate The Counselor, because like The Counselor is like that. Like if you've seen No Country for Old Men, you're kind of primed for The Counselor, but The Counselor there's even more of the kind of disparate events that kind of collide, and it's like what kind of meaning is there and there isn't. So it's like kind of like classic McCarthy, but I loved the Counselor, but I knew what was going on, and I think like critics, when they watched it, if they are not familiar, or like viewers are not familiar with McCarthy, or they don't like McCarthy, you're just not going to like it. But
Yeah, I usually end up with just rewatching old movies from the 90s for the most part that I loved.
yeah,
Or early 2000s maybe. Like I rewatch Superbad like all the time.
Superman.
I love that movie.
It took me a while to like it because I don't usually like raunchy comedies, but that one, yeah, after a while, I was like, okay, yeah, it is funny.
Yeah, it's very good. Like, well, it's sad for me because it's got everything, but you know the ending is like one of the saddest endings in like cinema, in my opinion. Like, cause you
Wait,
know,
are we talking about Superbad?
yeah,
Oh,
well,
okay.
yeah, just make sure, yeah,
Okay.
um, yeah, so yeah, I mean it's the saddest ending, and for me at least, because you know that one last look on the escalators is descending, looks back at his friend like he knows that everything was going to change right there.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So I don't know, I thought it was sad. I don't know. It was a very Fox and the Hound type moment for me. I don't know if you've seen that movie or not, Walt Disney. Where like you know he's when they're younger, you know, it's like Todd is the fox, I think, or No Copper is the fox. So he's talking to Mother Owl, whatever her name was. It was just Mother Owl, and he's talking about, yeah, we're gonna be friends forever. And she's like, I don't know, forever's a long time. Time has a way of changing things. And then it works out that they don't remain friends. So yeah, so
This
yeah.
reminds me, I'm a sucker for friendship movies. So my favorite movie is actually The Breakfast Club, Stand By Me, and also Dead Poets Society.
yeah,
I love
those
all
are
these
good.
movies.
Yeah.
I like the movies from. I've been retreating more into like the movies from the 70s. So like Deer. When was Deer Hunter? Was that the 80s or the 70s? Whenever it was, like Deer Hunter.
Mhm.
Like fuck. When you have you seen that movie, Paula?
I think
Deer
so.
Hunter.
I think so. But when it comes to war movies, I usually, well, I don't know.
Oh, like back when like De Niro goes to get Christopher Walken back, and they're playing Russian roulette. And
That's so
that
fucked. Oh, that
that
scene was so fucked.
your fucking heart stops, right? Like De
Mhm.
Niro is like, I'm gonna fucking kill you, right? Like you can tell like the tension. Or like another movie where that it's just like the ambiance of the whole thing just makes you feel like really unsafe. Deliverance. Like watch Deliverance by yourself.
Mhm.
And you're like, that makes you feel really unsafe. Just like in general, because you're just like that one and like Taxi Driver, like that. Oh, I fucking love Taxi Driver. But yeah, Deliverance. Have you seen uh like that shows you like ordinary people. I mean, I think what's so fucked up is just like how ordinary people. What makes you feel unsafe is like how fucked ordinary people can be. Just ordinary people. It's like it's almost like that scene from like Pulp Fiction, right, where they go into that uh pawn shop, and then here they've got like the gimp down in the basement, right, and it's like you watch that kind of a scene, or you watch Deliverance, and you're like, how many places have I been that I thought were just regular places, but like down in the basement, maybe they had like chained up women that they were like raping, right? But you never knew about it. Right? It makes you
Chick-fil-A is quite
feel,
like that.
huh?
I suspect that's how Chick-fil-A is.
That guy, okay, the guy who owns Chick-fil-A, he's so against gay people. Like I made this comment, like if you're like so that against gay people, you're sucking dicks. Like you're out there, you're sucking dicks. It's just a matter of time before it's discovered. But yeah, um, yeah, Dead Poet Society was. I loved that movie. I can Stand By Me was really good. Cody, did I mention my ping pong, ping ponging off of that? I think in one of the pods, I forget if I mentioned this or not. I wanted to do a Stand By Me type story where it was instead of going to search for a dead body, it was going to search where like a kid found like a abandoned cabin full of pornography.
Yeah.
So it was
They
like a
mentioned that,
company.
that
Yeah,
show.
it was like like you set it back in the 90s, or some kid comes back and he's like, guys, I found the portal to paradise. And they're like, what are you talking about? He's like, gotta fucking come see this cabin. Like, it's stocked to the brim. And then so then they go on, and it takes a similar vein. So instead of it seeing a dead body, it's discovering something a lot more what I would think would be more interesting, which is
Yeah, much more. Yeah.
a lot more interesting than seeing a dead body would be seeing, weird. Still got to do that.
If you could do both somehow, that'd be double interesting. Like a dead body with porn scattered all over.
It could be a guy who died from fucking autoerotic asphyxiation. So
Yeah, there you go.
so he's like hanging by a rope with like a dildo in his ass, and like his pants fucking hung down. He forgot to, and he was out of. Actually, I'm gonna do that. That's exactly what the fuck I'm gonna do when I write that piece. They're gonna find a dead body, and the kids aren't gonna know it. Like they're not gonna know. Like why'd he hang himself? I don't get it. He was here. Why'd he hang himself? And they have like no idea that it wasn't a suicide, that it was actually autoerotic asphyxiation gone wrong.
Or what happens is they walk in mid death, so he's like dying, but they're too distracted by the porn to help him.
Yeah. I got to tell you, I got to confess, when I walked into my uncle's porn closet, if there would have been a guy in there dying, I was like 12, I probably wouldn't have noticed it. I'd have been too enamored by like, whoa, this motherfucker's got 20 years of fucking Playboy. He's like in boxes.
Bro, quit kicking me. I'm trying to look at this thing.
Yeah, I'd kick me like, hey, why are you sitting there?
Die quietly, Jesus. Have a little dignity.
Oh my God. That's exactly, Cody, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do, the kids are going to be like fucking savages. The guy's going to be fucking dying from autoerotic asphyxiation, and they're just going to be enamored by his fucking porn collection. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to write that when we're done here. That's a good, that's really good. That's really good.
It's a good story.
But anyway, well, we can like stop whenever, Paula. I mean, I don't want to keep you from anything. I mean, we've already at almost the 2.5 mark, so
yeah.
But yeah, so everybody out there, check out Paula Deckard's work. She'll be in now. Cody, when is what's it called? What's the actual magazine called? I feel like a dope. I'm in it. I don't know what the fuck it's called.
Anxious Nothing, Volume 1.
Anxious Nothing, Volume. Yeah, so look for Paula in that. Look for Paula in Netta Aria. God, she's gonna fucking kill me because I talk to her all the time. I don't know how to say her fucking last name. Is it Aria? Area,
I guess. I have to message her as well just to see, make sure that she actually got my submission. I don't even know.
Yeah, she's a wonderful human being. Somewhere down the line we'll have her on too. Yeah, she's unbelievably nice, like unbelievably, just like Lawrence Apollo, just unbelievably nice. Yeah, so you'll be in that. Heart Like a Hole, folks, pick that up, and then somewhere in the future,
I'm not sure. I hope by the end of the year, but that's just me being too ambitious.
All right.
Well, appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on. Hopefully we didn't make you feel too uncomfortable. So
no, thanks for having me.
Hopefully you enjoyed yourself. So I had a good time.
Yeah, I had a good time. It was great talking to you, so.
Same.
All right.
Well,
take it easy.
Take care.
We'll see you.